The ocean was calm that afternoon, with just enough breeze to keep the sails stretched and the conversation flowing. Laughter echoed off the water as our group sipped cocktails on the upper deck, the sun painting everything in soft gold. Everyone looked relaxed, sun-kissed, slightly tipsy, trading old stories like no time had passed since college. Everyone except me. My name is Marissa. I'm 38 years old, an architect from Denver, and for the past 12 years, I've been married to Grant. We were one of 4 couples invited on this ridiculous, over-the-top Mediterranean sailing trip organized by our college friends, Aaron and Nathan. The yacht had 6 bedrooms, a private chef, and more alcohol than anyone needed. It was extravagant, maybe even unnecessary, but Grant had insisted it would be good for us. A chance to reconnect. Unplug. You need this, he had said. We need this. But as I leaned on the polished wood railing, pretending to watch the shoreline of some tiny Greek island in the distance, I wasn't thinking about reconnection. I was thinking about Felix. Felix, our old sailing instructor from college, a friend who had always been just Felix. He was here now, on the trip, blending into the group like he'd never left. Still tan, still lean, still walking barefoot across the deck like he owned every inch of the ocean. His laugh hadn't changed. Neither had the way he caught my eye and held it, just a second longer than necessary. Grant was sitting nearby with the others, deep in some debate about vintage wines with Nathan and Paolo. He wasn't watching me, but I could feel his presence, steady, solid. He'd always been that. Reliable, patient, good. And yet, all afternoon, I kept catching myself glancing at Felix. That evening, after dinner, we anchored off a quiet cove near an uninhabited island. Everyone was loose with wine and full from the chef's ridiculous seafood spread. Some stayed up to stargaze. Others retreated to cabins. I needed to move. I'm going for a swim, I announced as I stepped down to the lower deck. Grant stood up almost immediately. I'll come. The water was colder than expected, but refreshing. We floated in silence, the moon high and heavy above us. After a while, Grant climbed out and toweled off, but I lingered, letting the chill clear my head. When I finally got out, I stayed on the lower deck to dry off, still wearing only my bikini bottoms. The others were far away, out of sight, and the night was warm. I thought I was alone, until I heard him. Still hate towels, huh? I didn't flinch, didn't grab a shirt, just turned to see Felix leaning casually on the rail, grinning like we were sharing a secret. Still love sneaking up on people? I said lightly, matching his energy. He shrugged, eyes not moving. It wasn't flirtation exactly, but it wasn't nothing. Grant appeared seconds later at the top of the stairs, holding my towel. His eyes landed on Felix, then on me. His smile didn't fade, but it changed, just slightly. And I knew, even before he handed me the towel and walked away, that something had shifted. The next morning, the yacht docked in a coastal city I couldn't even pronounce. Somewhere between the jagged limestone cliffs and overpriced gelato carts, we were supposed to restock provisions and stretch our legs. Everyone was excited to explore. I just wanted to be alone with my thoughts. I told Marissa I was seasick. It was easier than trying to explain the weight pressing on my chest. She smiled, not in a fake way, not cruel, just casually cheerful, like nothing had happened. Well, don't push yourself. I'll grab a few things at the market with Aaron and Felix. She said his name like it meant nothing, like he was just part of the errand list. I gave a tight nod and stayed behind for a few minutes before eventually following at a distance. The harbor was buzzing with tourists. Vendors yelled over each other in a blur of languages. And then I saw them, Marissa and Felix, standing alone near a cafe stall tucked off the main square. Aaron was nowhere in sight. He leaned in, talking with his hands like he always did. She was laughing softly, looking up at him with that squint-eyed smile she only gave when she was completely comfortable. They didn't touch, but they didn't have to. It was in the space between them, the relaxed posture, the way he reached to tuck her hair behind her ear and she didn't pull away. It was nothing, technically, and yet it screamed something. I turned before they could see me and walked back toward the pier, my stomach now twisting for real. Back on the yacht, I stayed on the sun deck while the others made drinks and fussed over souvenirs. Marissa came back holding a bag of herbs and some weird ceramic fish. She kissed my temple and asked if I was feeling better. I said I was fine, but inside, I was unraveling. The image of her on the deck last night, bare and unbothered. The easy way Felix appeared, unfazed by her nudity. And now this, the private talk, the laughter, the intimacy of memory. It was all starting to make sense in a way I hated. Suddenly, little things from the past came flooding back. The time Felix showed up at our wedding with no +1, but still got a warm, lingering hug. The way Marissa always paused just slightly before saying his name. The way she once corrected me, gently, when I called him just a sailing buddy. Actually, we were friends before you and I even met. At the time, I didn't think much of it. But now it felt like the beginning of a pattern I'd been too trusting to see. That night, I barely slept. Marissa curled up beside me like she always did, her breath steady, peaceful. But I stared at the ceiling and made a decision. Tomorrow morning, I was going to ask her. All of it. Straight out. No more pretending. The sun hadn't fully risen yet. The sea was glassy and pale, the kind of morning that made you feel like time had hit pause. Most of the group was still asleep. Even the kitchen crew was quiet below deck. I found Marissa near the bow, her hands wrapped around a mug, eyes scanning the horizon. She didn't look surprised to see me. Couldn't sleep? She asked without turning. Not really. I leaned against the railing beside her. Can we talk? Her shoulders shifted slightly, just enough to show she heard the tone. She set the mug down. Okay. I kept my voice even. Last night, after the swim, you didn't seem at all surprised or uncomfortable when Felix showed up. Not even when you were. She cut in, too fast. It wasn't a big deal. Wasn't it? I asked. You were sitting there, completely exposed, and you barely blinked. He didn't either. Marissa sighed. Grant, are you serious? It's not like I was flashing strangers at a bar. It was late. It was private. That's not the point, I said, sharper now. It wasn't just the moment. It was how he looked at you. How you looked back. Like it wasn't the first time. Silence. Then, with a sigh that sounded more annoyed than remorseful, she said, Fine. If you really need me to spell it out. Yeah, something happened between us. My throat tightened. When? Years ago, she said quickly. Before you and I were serious. How far did it go? Her jaw clenched. It was physical. Brief. A fling. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. And you never thought to tell me? We weren't even exclusive yet, she snapped. It didn't matter. You told me everything else, I said. Or so I thought. I told you what mattered, she said. I didn't lie. Yes, you did, I said quietly. Omitting the truth is still lying. She scoffed. Oh, come on. Are we really going to debate semantics now? You've known Felix for years. We've all hung out 100 times. What did you think that was? Pure coincidence? No, I said. I thought it was friendship. That's what you always said. It was, she insisted. Eventually. I'm telling you now because you cornered me about it. Because I saw the way he looked at you, I said. Like he already knew every inch of your body and had the right to look again. Her eyes narrowed. This is ridiculous. No, I said more firmly now. What's ridiculous is that I've been married to you for over a decade, and I'm just now hearing about this. You stood at that altar and promised me honesty. This is not honesty. It wasn't relevant, she muttered. Maybe not to you, I said. But it was to me. We stood in silence for a moment, the wind picking up just enough to make the rigging creak. I trusted you, I said. I trusted everything we built. And now I'm questioning whether I ever really knew who you were. Marissa's face was unreadable, defensive, cold. And suddenly I realized she wasn't sorry. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She didn't follow me right away. I left her standing at the bow after our conversation, still clutching her coffee mug like it was armor. An hour later, I found her in our cabin, legs tucked under her, scrolling through photos on her phone like nothing had happened. I shut the door behind me. We're not done. Marissa looked up, expression tight. I already told you. It was years ago. We weren't exclusive. You're lying by omission, I said. Again. She sighed hard, like I was the one dragging this out. What do you want me to say, Grant? That I should have given you a full sexual resume when we got engaged? No, I said. I want the truth. The full truth. You and Felix, what was it really? She hesitated. Her eyes dropped to her lap, then flicked back up. You're not gonna like it. I already don't, I said. Just say it. There was a long pause, and then finally, carefully, she said, it wasn't just me. I blinked. What? The other women on this boat. Erin, Zoe, Rachel. We were all with Felix. I stared at her. What the hell are you talking about? She swallowed, the first sign of actual discomfort I'd seen. It was this unspoken thing. Back then, before we got married, when we were still figuring things out, we were serious about our boyfriends. You, Nathan, Drew, Noah, but not fully committed yet. Felix was easy, safe, someone we knew wouldn't get attached. Jesus, I muttered. It wasn't emotional. Not for any of us. It was like a transitional phase. A way to keep things light with him while things were getting heavier with you. I sat down slowly, the weight of it pulling me toward the floor. So he was just, what, a human buffer? Her voice was steady, like she'd practiced this. We knew Felix wouldn't expect anything. He was fun, open, and he didn't make it complicated. It wasn't about love. It was just physical. And you all agreed to this? Not in a formal way, she said. It just kind of happened. Quietly. Over time. And the rest of us, the guys, we were what? Placeholders until you got bored? No, she snapped. That's not fair. We loved you. We just didn't want to rush. The guys we were serious about, we wanted to get it right. Felix was never part of that equation. I laughed bitterly. Right? You just let him into your bodies while saving your emotions for us. How considerate. It worked, she said. We're married. We built lives. If you didn't push me this morning, I never would have told you, because it didn't mean anything. It meant something to me, I said, because now I know I wasn't the only one you were looking at like a future. And I shook my head. He knew all along. She didn't deny it. That's what pisses me off the most, I said. That he was smiling at me over beers while thinking, I've had her too. That I was part of some secret joke. It wasn't a joke, she said quietly. It was survival. Young women trying to figure out what love was without making a mess of it. Well, I said, standing, you made a mess anyway. She didn't stop me when I walked out. She didn't say a word. I spent the next day trying not to lose my mind. The yacht glided through turquoise water, and the group acted like nothing was wrong. Laughing, lounging, playing cards under the sunshade. While I sat in the corner pretending to read, my jaw locked so tight it hurt. Marissa kept her distance. Felix didn't. He tried to talk to me twice. Once during breakfast, a light comment about the weather, some dumb joke about sunscreen. I gave him a stare so flat he backed off mid-sentence. The second time, he caught me on the port side deck while I was fixing a tangled fishing line. You good, man? He asked, voice low, casual. I didn't answer. I just walked away. At dinner, the pressure finally cracked. The table was set for 8, candles flickering in glass jars, wine flowing like always. Everyone chatted like it was any other night. Felix sat across from me, next to Paolo, cutting into a grilled sea bass like he didn't have a care in the world. Like he hadn't helped bury a secret I never agreed to be part of. I tried to focus on the food. Didn't work. He leaned across the table at one point and said, You haven't touched your drink. Chef said this bottle was special. I looked up slowly. Do me a favor, Felix. Sure. Don't talk to me. The whole table went quiet. Utensils froze midair. Aaron blinked. Nathan glanced over at Marissa, who stared straight ahead, cheeks flushing. Felix gave a tight smile. Okay. Didn't mean to bother you. You didn't, I said. But you're about to. Grant. Marissa said quietly, warning in her voice. No, I said, turning toward her. He keeps acting like we're cool. Like everything's normal. I'm not doing that. What's going on? Zoe asked. Drew was frowning now too, glancing between us like he'd missed a cue. Felix raised his hands like he was surrendering. All right, man. I get it. I'll back off. Do more than back off, I said, my voice rising now. Give me space. You've had enough of what's mine already. Jesus, Paolo muttered. Marissa stood abruptly, her napkin dropping to the floor. Grant. No, I snapped. You wanted me to keep quiet, remember? You said it didn't matter. Well, it does. Felix's face had gone rigid. His smile was gone. He looked smaller now. Older. I pushed my chair back and stood. Enjoy your dinner. No one said anything as I walked out. Just silence and flickering candlelight behind me. I stood at the stern, staring out into the black water, fists in my pockets. My heart was pounding. I hadn't told them everything. Not yet. But now they knew something was coming. And the calm they'd all been pretending to float in, that was gone. The sun was low, burning orange against the water as the crew laid out bottles of champagne and tiny desserts in glass dishes. Someone had the idea to toast the trip. Halfway through, still smiling, still pretending. I watched them gather on the deck like nothing was wrong. Marissa poured herself a drink. I watched her carefully avoid my eyes. Felix laughed at something Paolo whispered, but he looked tired. Nervous, maybe. Or guilty. I couldn't tell anymore. Everyone else clinked glasses, posing for someone's phone. Nathan was already drunk. Erin was fixing her lipstick. It was all so normal. And I hated it. I raised my glass. I've got something to say. The group quieted. I stepped forward, holding my champagne up like a man offering a toast. Except I didn't smile. To second place. There was a flicker of confusion. A few polite chuckles. Then silence. What's that mean? Zoe asked. It means, I said slowly. Some of us showed up thinking we were our wives' first choices, when really we were just the finish line after someone else got there first. The air thinned. Marissa stiffened. Grant, don't. No. Let's be honest for once, I said, turning toward the others. Let's talk about how Felix here somehow managed to sleep with every woman on this boat before their weddings. All of them. Felix froze, mid-sip. Paolo blinked. The rest of the group just stopped. Nathan laughed, but it was hollow. Wait, what? I'm serious, I said. Marissa, Zoe, Erin, Rachel, every single one of them. While they were with us, or at least thinking about being with us. That's not. Marissa started. Go ahead. Deny it, I said. Tell Nathan how Felix was just a harmless friend. Tell Drew it was just casual. Tell Paolo what a noble placeholder he's dating. Erin looked at Nathan, panic written all over her face. Zoe's mouth parted like she wanted to speak, but couldn't. Nathan turned to his wife. Is this true? Erin's eyes welled up. It wasn't serious. It was just once. Before we got engaged. Zoe said nothing. She just looked away. Paolo took a small step back from Felix. Tell me this isn't some game to you. Felix opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I looked at each of the men. They called it a transitional phase. A nice way to warm up for us. Felix got the fun. We got the commitment. They managed their urges, and we never even knew. Nathan stared at the deck, breathing hard. Does it matter? I asked. It does if it was while we were together, Drew said. Felix finally spoke. It wasn't malicious. None of us meant to. Save it, I said. We were all lied to. Some longer than others. Paolo stepped forward and slapped Felix across the face. Not hard, but loud. You told me I was the first you were serious about, he said, voice cracking. You said none of that old stuff mattered. It didn't, Felix said. Not like that. You don't get to decide what matters. Paolo snapped and turned away. Marissa reached for my arm, whispering. You didn't have to humiliate everyone. I looked her in the eye. You already did. Then I walked away, leaving them in the fading light, silent, shattered, and finally seeing what I'd known for days. Nothing about this trip was ever what it seemed. The aftermath hit like a rogue wave. No one said much after I dropped the truth, but by morning, it was chaos. You could hear it from every level of the yacht. Slammed doors, muffled arguments, someone crying behind the galley. The friendships we thought were solid cracked in real time. Paolo was the first to break. He stood at the rail, clutching a mug of tea, eyes puffy. Felix tried to talk to him. Soft voice, guilty smile, but Paolo just stared at him like he didn't recognize the man he'd been sleeping beside. Then he slapped him. No wind-up, no shouting. Just one sharp, clean smack across the cheek. Felix stumbled back, stunned, and Paolo whispered, I should have known. You used me like you used them. He didn't wait for a response. He went straight to the cabin, packed a duffel, and told the captain he wanted off at the next port. By midday, Felix stopped trying. He sat alone, sunglasses on, hunched over a notebook. No more jokes. No more smirking. Just silence. The others? Imploding. Nathan accused Erin of ruining their entire foundation. She sobbed, swearing it was before they got serious, that it was meaningless. But that word only set him off more. Drew stared at Zoe for 10 full minutes at breakfast without touching his food. She wouldn't meet his eyes. Rachel and Noah barely spoke at all, but she cried in the bathroom for half an hour while he drank straight gin by the hot tub. Then came Marissa. She found me by the bow that evening, alone with the horizon. You couldn't just leave it between us, she snapped. You had to humiliate me in front of everyone. I didn't move. Humiliate you? Do you have any idea how that felt? Knowing I was the only one who didn't know I was part of some group experiment? It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, I said, turning to face her. And you let it rot for years. You didn't even think I deserved to know. I didn't want to hurt you, she said, eyes blazing. No, I said. You didn't want to deal with the fallout. She folded her arms. So now what? You just blow up everything? Years of friendship, connection gone? I laughed bitterly. That connection? Built on lies. And what about you? She said. You just get to walk around acting righteous while lighting everyone on fire? I'm done pretending, I said. That's the only thing I've changed. She stared at me for a long moment, her jaw tight. Then she turned and walked away. No one had dinner that night. The table stayed empty. No drinks, no music. Just silence broken by the creak of wood and the distant churn of water. By dawn, the group had splintered into pieces that couldn't be glued back together. Whatever this trip was meant to be, reconnection, celebration, nostalgia, it had turned into something else entirely. A reckoning. And I was no longer interested in pretending we were still friends. We docked at a sleepy coastal town 3 days earlier than planned. No one said it out loud, but the trip was over. The laughter was gone. The dinners were silent. Even the crew looked like they were avoiding eye contact. When the last suitcase rolled down the dock, the group scattered without hugs, without goodbyes. Paolo left first, refusing to look at Felix as he climbed into a taxi, his face still swollen from crying. Aaron and Nathan got into a separate car, sitting on opposite ends of the back seat. Zoe walked ahead of Drew like she didn't know him at all. Rachel didn't even wait for Noah. Marissa and I rode together in silence. The flight home was quiet. The ride from the airport, even quieter. We didn't fight. We didn't speak. We just moved through the motions, like strangers who'd been assigned the same seat on a lifeboat. At home, she dropped her bag in the hallway and started unpacking like nothing had happened. I watched her fold a sundress, smooth it over with her palm, and tuck it neatly into a drawer. That's when I knew. She didn't think this was over. But I did. 2 weeks passed. The silence stayed. We slept in the same bed, but I turned my back to her every night. She tried small talk, then soft touches, then guilt. All of it bounced off me like rain on glass. I filed the divorce paperwork on a Thursday. When I handed her the envelope, she didn't speak. She just stared at it, lips slightly parted, blinking like someone had thrown cold water in her face. This is a mistake, she said finally. No, I replied. It was a mistake years ago. This is the correction. She cried that night. I heard her muffling it in the bathroom. I didn't get up. I didn't go to her. Something in me had closed, and I didn't want it opened again. 1 week later, Drew texted and asked if I wanted to grab a drink. We sat at a dive bar across town. Cheap beer, sticky tables, nobody we knew. He looked wrecked. I probably did too. Zoe's staying with her sister, he said. Therapist says we might be able to fix it, but only if we rebuild everything from scratch. I nodded. You think that's possible? I don't know, he admitted. But at least she told me. Eventually. Some of them didn't even get that. He took a long sip. You and Marissa? Done, I said. There's no version of this where I keep pretending I wasn't lied to for a decade. He gave a hollow laugh. Then I envy your clarity. Later that night, I blocked Felix's number. He tried calling twice, and I hadn't picked up either time. I didn't need to hear his apology. I didn't care how he never meant to hurt anyone. He had become a foggy silhouette in my past, a shadow I no longer owed anything to. But Paolo messaged me the next day. Just one line. Thank you for saying it out loud. I stared at the screen for a while. Then I wrote back. You deserved better. It wasn't about closure. It was about truth. Marissa made one final attempt a week later. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, no makeup, dark circles under her eyes. We're not broken, she whispered. We're just bruised. I didn't flinch. I already filed. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. It was raining the day Marissa came by. Not heavy, just enough to mist the windows and make the air feel softer than it should have. I opened the door, and there she was, damp curls clinging to her cheeks, a tote bag hanging off one shoulder. She looked smaller than I remembered. I brought your passport and the spare keys, she said. I stepped aside without a word and let her in. She walked slowly, as if the place had changed. It hadn't. She had. She placed the items on the kitchen counter, her fingers lingering a second too long. The cat's staying with my sister for now, in case you were wondering. I nodded once. For a moment, neither of us moved. The silence felt like old furniture, worn, familiar, heavy. I've gone over it 100 times in my head, she said quietly. What I could have said, what I should have said, what I never gave you. Her voice cracked slightly. I never meant to hurt you. I didn't rush to fill the space. I let her sit in the discomfort, the way she made me sit in it for years. You know, I said finally. I used to think we had something solid. Not perfect, but real. We did, she whispered. No, I said. I had something real. You were holding a version of it, but not the same one I was carrying. She looked up at me, her eyes red but dry. It was meaningless, Grant. What happened with Felix? All of it. It wasn't love. It wasn't even romance. Just a phase. I nodded slowly. Meaningless to you, but not to me. She swallowed hard. I gave you all of me, I said. Not just the steady parts, the loyalty, the plans, the patience. I gave you the messy stuff too, the vulnerable stuff. And the whole time, you were holding back this file of edited truths. Like I wouldn't notice. Like I didn't deserve to know. I was young. I thought I was being smart. You were being strategic, I said. There's a difference. She blinked. Can't we just rebuild? I looked at her, the woman I had once built a life with, and felt nothing sharp anymore. No rage, no confusion, just a calm I didn't expect. No, I said gently, because I don't want to build something on a foundation I had no part in designing. Marissa nodded, eyes welling. She looked around once more, then stepped toward the door. I loved you, she said. I know, I replied. But I think you loved who I was to you, not who I actually was. She opened the door slowly, letting the rain in for a second, then stepped outside without another word. I stood there for a long while after, listening to the steady tap of rain on the windows. Then I closed the door, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel shut out. I felt free.